through Sunday at Aaron's. Just $12 gets you started leasing to own top brands in furniture, electronics, and appliances. Yes, just $12 with no credit needed and free delivery and setup. Make your holiday a jolly one. Get started with just $12 at participating Aaron's stores this Friday and Saturday, or at Aaron's.com this Friday through Sunday. Just $12 gets you started during Aaron's Jolly Days. Transaction advertises a rental purchase agreement. Some restrictions apply, so see store for details.
Edit an MT. I'm using the button.
Idiopathic
oh, nice. I actually use it. Second time in my life I've used it.
10 seconds.
All right, we got 10 seconds.
A dry, persistent cough.
Good job, Jeffrey.
On the ball, baby.
Now, visit
technological wizard. Dunc and Holder on a Wednesday, November 29th. Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan here with you at our NOLA.com Times-Picayune studios. Look, we got a jam-packed show today. I feel like it's almost a Thursday show. We got so much going on because usually we had the Thursday show and Friday show and it flies by, but so much going on here on Wednesday. Why don't I lay out the show real quick and then we will get to the hottest topic probably in the sports world today about the benching of New Orleans native Eli Manning. Of course, he will not be the starting quarterback for the Giants anymore. He's being benched for one Geno Smith. Oh my goodness, Jeff, that's I'll get into it in a second. But just to lay out the show, around 10:30, we will talk with our own Ron Higgins, LSU SEC columnist for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. We'll talk with him about the college football playoffs. Look, Georgia's taking on Auburn in the SEC title game. Alabama right now is on the outside looking in. And, of course, the coaching chaos. It sounds like they've got a new coach up in Mississippi State. Dan Mullen's now in Florida. Tennessee can't hire Boo Boo the Bear. They can't hire anybody. So we'll talk with Ron Higgins about that. And, of course, LSU bowl possibilities. So we'll talk with Ron about that. Then around 11:30, we will have our own Will Guillory talking Pelicans Timberwolves. They hit the court tonight at Smoothie King Center. Of course, that's going to be a significant game in the Western Conference. They're battling for playoff supremacy right now early on in the season. And then top of the 11 o'clock hour, we will go up to New York and talk with Bob Glauber, the NFL columnist, a longtime NFL columnist for Newsday. We will talk with him about definitely, Jeff, the hottest topic in sports, and it just so happens to relate to us down here in New Orleans with Eli Manning, and I think it's a stunner for basically the sports world to see just what's happened to Eli and how the Giants have handled this situation.
Well, you know, the Giants have always been kind of one of the model franchises in the NFL. It's a blue blood organization from the start. They've had great ownership, great management, and they've taken a nosedive, and their PR hit they're taking for this move is unprecedented. I can't remember anything in the history of the Giants that compares to this, locally or nationally. Their image has been tarnished, and they've got some major PR work to do to get back the fan base, because Eli Manning led them to 2 Super Bowls and has not had the greatest year, but he is not the problem. I think everybody knows what the problems have been in New York. It's been management. It's been player procurement. The hiring of Ben McAdoo as a head coach, a lot of people question that, and that's bearing out, I think, to be proven true. So to blame, essentially what it comes across is that they're blaming Eli Manning, and I think that's very ill-advised is the best way I could use. I mean, it's gutless in a lot of ways, the way they've handled it, and certainly I think it spells the end of Eli Manning's career in New York, and it should not have ended this way.
I think what's even more gutless, and it's probably something that's very minor on the scale, but the way that the Giants, just look at the way they almost promoted it on social media. Watch Eli Manning's reaction to him being benched. It's like they're dragging him through the dirt unnecessarily.
Exactly.
Everything about it stinks. You've seen so many former players, even current teammates, just say, what on planet Earth is going on here with Eli Manning? He's not the problem. Look, Odell Beckham's been gone. Brandon Marshall's been gone. Sterling Shepard has not been a part of this team. Their offensive line stinks. Look, their running game isn't the best. And I'm not saying that Eli Manning has been an elite quarterback in the last couple of years, because I don't think that's the case. But still, can you imagine if Sean Payton and Tom Benson did this to, say, Drew Brees? Can you imagine if they did this to Aaron Rodgers? They didn't even do it like this to Brett Favre. They let him play it out, even though they had a clear heir apparent. Instead, I think what piles onto this is that the news is the Giants are starting Geno Smith.
I think that's the biggest point.
And what a disaster in New York with the Jets he was. He was a total nightmare.
Right. If you were doing this for, say, Davis Webb, their young quarterback, that would make a little more sense. I think people could at least understand it. But Geno Smith is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Everybody knows it, especially the people in New York that saw him play. That was just ridiculous to try and sell that on the New York fan base. And not only that, but Eli Manning has a record going right now for consecutive streaks. It's approaching a record and of consecutive starts. And for it to end because of this decision has nothing to do with him as a player or him and his health. It has to do with a decision made by management. I don't think anybody in New York is going to survive this. I don't think Jerry Reese is going to survive it. I don't think Ben McAdoo is going to survive it. I think ownership's going to completely clean house. And so knowing that, now Eli Manning's going to pay the price for his records and probably move on to another spot next year.
I hope he moves on to another spot next year. I'll just read a quote from a spot I think he's going to move on to, and that would be a quote from Tom Coughlin, who is now with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, Blake Bortles is a pile of nonsense. Eli Manning would fit perfectly with Leonard Fournette. More New Orleans connections down in Jacksonville. I'll just read you Tom Coughlin's quote here, and just a heads up, next segment, you'll hear from Eli Manning, our partners at NJ.com here with NOLA.com. We're sister media organizations, and we will hear from what Eli Manning had to say. Also, WAPT up in Jackson, they had a chance to record some comments from Archie Manning, who was in a banquet. I think Rick Cleveland, our good buddy from,
Yes.
longtime legendary sports writer from Mississippi, he was like in the shot too, so he was up there with him. So we'll hear what Archie Manning had to say about this as well. But here's what Tom Coughlin, of course, he's with the Jaguars, coached Eli Manning. Here's what he had to say. Surprise is not the word. My sentiments are totally with Eli Manning. I love the kid. He's a class act. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion. He is the finest, most humblest young man in that locker room. I haven't followed the Giants. I know it's a disappointing year, but my thoughts are strictly with Eli. I am very upset about when I heard that. I bet you immediately someone is making some back channel talk somewhere. Hey, come on down, Eli. Let's see if you can get yourself released and get the hell out of New York.
That seems like a fait accompli, doesn't it? I mean, it's going to happen. I don't think there's any doubt about it. But the other people might be in the market for him, and I'm sure the Giants are going to want to get some return on Eli Manning. And the unfortunate thing is that I think his leadership now falls into question, and unwittingly. It shouldn't. But the fact is he wants to lead this team. He said it. He wants to lead this team out of the abyss, the problems. And he's been a class act all along. He's never complained. He's never come out and gone against the company line, which is typical of a Manning. That's the way they handle business. That's why they get paid the way they get paid, because they are basically the CEO of their team. And for him to be treated this way, especially with the stuff you were saying about them using his press conference on social media, that's ridiculous. And that would never happen here with the New Orleans Saints. It would never happen in a class organization, and the Giants have always been run that way. And I think it's interesting that Kate Mara, the actress, that's the daughter of John Mara, the Giants owner, is also putting stuff out on social media. And to me, that's I don't know how they recover from it. I really don't.
What is she saying? I'm not
She
sure.
just said like Eli Manning and had a broken heart. That it hurt her that this was going on. I mean, she's the daughter of the owner of the team, and certainly a very popular actress. Not that matters, but it just shows you how this is resonating in New York and across the country.
And it's just something that when you're a quarterback, not when you win one Super Bowl, but you help win 2 Super Bowls, you're the Super Bowl MVP in both of these games, sometimes things can get dirty at the end. Look, even his brother Peyton, it wasn't the best of endings. I mean, he got injured and they moved on, but it wasn't, hey, let me pull the rug out from under you in this last season and replace you with Curtis Painter. Because remember, when they went 1-15, that's who their quarterback was. It wasn't because they pulled the rug out from under him. I couldn't imagine, even some of these quarterbacks, you think of longtime quarterbacks in the NFL who have never won a Super Bowl. I can't see the Chargers ever doing that to, say, Phillip Rivers. I can't see, I can go on, Ben Roethlisberger. I would never see that. Just Matt Ryan, you can go across the board. Russell Wilson, of course, they would never, like any of these quarterbacks who have been to the top of the mountaintop or one of the greats, no team would do this to them the way they're doing it. It's the biggest slap in the face I've seen as far as being benched. I've seen in a long, long time. I'm not going to say ever, but a long, long time.
Well, you make
in sports, period.
No, you make a great point because it got a little messy with Joe Montana in San Francisco, but they had Steve Young behind him. Same thing in Green Bay when Brett Favre was being moved out. They had Aaron Rodgers. So you understand it. The fans understand it. But Geno Smith is a joke. Everybody knows it. And for them to act like that they need to see Geno Smith, I mean, what do they need to see? They've seen him play numerous times on tape. So I don't know how they sell that, and I think that is why this thing blew up in their face, and I don't know why they thought it wouldn't. I don't know what they were thinking ahead of time, but clearly they weren't. As you know, columnist of the New York Post said, this isn't exactly Lou Gehrig replacing Wally Pipp. It's Geno Smith, and that's impossible to sell to the New York fan base or to any fan base because Geno Smith has a body of work that we've all seen, and Eli Manning is not the problem there. He's not played great. But no one on that team has played well. The defense has been a disappointment. The offensive line's a travesty, and their entire perimeter receiving core is injured. So what did they expect to happen? I don't know what they're accomplishing in this move.
And I wouldn't have a problem with it at all if, say, they released him or tried to trade him in the offseason, but don't bench him like this. It's a joke. I mean, if you want to focus in on going to get Kirk Cousins in the offseason or some quarterback that might hit the market, or you're focusing in on drafting a guy, that's perfectly fine. We know that, look, Jerry Reese was at the Rosen-Darnold Bowl. He was scouting both quarterbacks, and you understand that. But the way this has been handled has been one of the poorer situations I've seen in quite a while.
If you want to see Geno Smith, work him in the course of a game. Give him a couple of series, get him some tape, but let Eli Manning continue to start. He's earned that, and he has that consecutive start streak, and I know that that's really not a huge landmark, but it means a lot to Eli Manning, and he deserves that. You owe it to him to continue that streak. I mean, that's a hallowed streak among quarterbacks, and it meant a lot to Eli Manning, and now it's going to be over.
Well, he passed Peyton up, and I think they were probably waiting for that, and yet – look, let's spell it out. The Giants gave him an option. Hey, we can start you, and then we're going to bench you in the second half like it's a preseason game. And Eli Manning, in his comments that we're going to play in the next segment, he's basically like, no, that's a joke. I mean, you're acting like this is a preseason game, and I'm just some charity case.
Right.
So, look, he was given the option. I'm with him. I wouldn't want to do it. It's an embarrassment to one of the best players to ever play for the Giants.
I've got no problem if they want to work a guy in at some point for a series or two. I mean, they're obviously giving up on the season. And so if they said that to him, then I look at it a little bit differently because I think if they want to see a quarterback, whether it's Davis Webb or Geno Smith, within the course of a game, I mean, what's wrong with that? I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't think it's an insult to Eli Manning. I don't.
But I think it's an insult to put in Geno Smith. If you're putting in Davis Webb, it's a different story. Geno Smith is a laughingstock in New York.
Right, and everybody knows what Geno Smith is.
Right.
I mean, everybody knows it.
Right, exactly. I wonder if he's going to punch Eli in the face like he did, or get punched in the face. I don't know. But anyway, 504-260-1280 is the number to get involved in the show. Why don't we take a break right here? In the next segment, we will hear from Eli Manning and Archie Manning on this topic. And look, we're going to be talking Saints. We're going to be talking Pelicans. We will talk more Eli Manning at the top of the 11 o'clock hour with Bob Glauber from the Newsday, and just simply Newsday, not Newsday, not the Newsday.
Right.
Like drop the Facebook, drop the. It's just Facebook.
It's like the Delta. I'm on the Delta Airlines.
Yeah, I just stumbled over my words and have to
It happens. I do it all the time.
Backtrack on it. So come on back here, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder. Yeah, so you didn't know that they gave him
No, that wouldn't bother me.
Jordy Holtberg.
The problem is,
there's something happening here. I can't put my finger on it.
if it were Davis Webb, you'd be fine.
I know, but I mean,
dude, Geno Smith, that's a joke.
I know, but I mean, like, that's a different. I didn't know that, and that's a different thing. They weren't basically benching
New
him.
Orleans.
It's time
Well,
for
they were
some
going to
straight
bench him
talk.
at some point.
Big
Like in the
wireless
game, he was going to get
companies
benched.
charge
Right, but I mean, if they explained it ahead of time to the fan base, they'd say, "Look, we're going to work him in."
The same cell towers.
Then
but
there's
just
No, you're flip-flopping.
Who knew?
I'm not flip-flopping. I didn't know that. I haven't read anything on
So
this.
let's do
I
something.
had no idea.
It's
Like,
time to switch to Straight Talk.
So, I mean, I
Unlimited
read
plans start as low as
a little bit on it,
$35
but
a
not-
month on America's
I've been
largest,
buried
most
in
dependable
getting Drew
networks.
Brees' story
Straight Talk
for
Wireless.
the front
Only at
page at
Walmart.
Savings may vary.
Wednesday at noon.
They needed it Monday, 6
I
a.m.
know.
Terms of service at straighttalk.com.
All right.
Though they did not
Next,
say
Emma.
exactly how many they sold.
Sure you don't want to stick around for another
Say they sold
hour and 40
millions
minutes? You
of
can jump on the
Alexa
mic.
devices over the Black Friday holiday shopping weekend. The Echo Dot and
Uh-oh.
Amazon Fire TV Stick were the best
Eagles,
products
fly
of
high,
any
Eagles.
manufacturer in any
See
category
ya.
on Amazon. Both products were heavily discounted for the holiday. Just in case you're wondering, Adobe Analytics says the best-selling tech devices overall for the holiday were the Nintendo Switch, Apple iPad and AirPods, Sony PlayStation VR, Google Chromecast, and Samsung tablets. Samsung is out with some
They're
technology
going to clean
to help
house up there big
colorblind
time.
people.
Oh, my God.
And they're going to go for
App
some
lets
big
people
name
diagnose
coach.
their
I
personal
guarantee you.
deficiencies
Nah,
and links
yeah,
with
I
don't know who
the
they
TV
get,
to adjust
but-
colors based on
Hey,
the
Sean
results. The app claims to be able to identify
Maybe
the
they
type
won't
and
think he's
level
too big of a star
person's
now.
color vision deficiency.
Maybe they'll get him and
UBS
Drew.
Auto Survey says
Free
almost
agent.
every 6 cars sold in the world
you can imagine
will be
good Drew going to
electric
New
by
York.
2025.
No.
The study says Tesla will
Play
benefit
with
the
Odell
most from the
Beckham.
rise
Could you
of
imagine
electric
that?
vehicles.
Drew would be like,
right, 1 minute.
dude, go
Larry
away.
Olson,
Go
NBC
away.
News Radio.
Aaron's Jolly Days are here. This Friday through Sunday at Aaron's, just $12 gets you started leasing
All right,
your own
we'll
top
play all
brand
the
furniture,
soundbite
electronics,
stuff
and
here.
appliances.
Okay.
Yes, just 12
All right.
Cool.
with no credit needed and free delivery and setup. Make your holiday a jolly one. Get started with just $12 at participating Aaron stores this Friday and Saturday, or at Aaron's.com this Friday through Sunday. Just $12 gets you started during Aaron's Jolly Days. Transaction advertises a rental purchase agreement. Some restrictions apply, so see store for details.
Whether you're gathered around the dinner table or turning up the volume at a holiday party, amp up the holiday spirit with Billboard
my
Music's
weekly odds.
exclusive
Let's see
line of
what's going on
electronic
this week.
products. Featured
Sorry,
products on
I got
Billboard's
that actually
store
emailed to me,
website
too.
include
You probably get it
Bluetooth
every week.
outdoor
Probably don't even
portable
realize it.
water-resistant
Yeah,
Bluetooth
I see
speakers,
it sometimes.
karaoke machines,
Some
best
other
full
like
apparel, and
odds
much
maker
more.
site
Billboard
like saw an
headphones and
article
speakers
like
are
my
available at
first and 10
Staples,
column. They're
CVS,
like
and
trying
Office
to
Depot.
ask
For
me
all
to like
products, visit
do
store.com
Here we go.
and get the gift of
as in,
music
like,
this
use our
holiday
odds
season.
instead.
And it's that life out the cash money world, and I'ma bring them in my world. I want it, you got it. Don't make me have to go in your pocket.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Just real quick, since I'm obsessed with odds, Jeff thinks my alter life, all I do is gamble on prop bets and such. But via Bovada, I know this is something our fan base here in New Orleans will be curious about. Alvin Kamara has increased his odds to win Rookie of the Year. Last week he was 4-5. Now he is 1-5. So he is the overwhelming favorite to win NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Leonard Fournette is behind him at 4-1. Kareem Hunt 9-1. Christian McCaffrey staying put at 20-1. So, and just look at our front page of our sports section. It's just a gigantic, awesome photo of Alvin Kamara with the headline "New Back City." So obviously, Alvin Kamara is getting respect nationally. As you know, a lot of Saints fans complain, "Oh, we don't get any respect nationally." People know who Alvin Kamara is now.
Yeah, they're getting plenty of respect. That's not the issue right now. I mean, they're probably staring. If Lattimore gets back on the field, they got a great chance to win Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, which I know the last time the Offensive Rookie of the Year was a Saint was, I believe, 95 or 96 maybe, with Reuben Mays. And
86.
86, I'm sorry. And then George Rogers won before that in 81. And those are the only two Rookie of the Year awards I believe they've won. I don't think they've ever won Defensive Rookie of the Year.
That would probably be right, yeah. So, all right, let's switch back here to Eli Manning. Look, why are we talking about Eli Manning? Because he's a noted New Orleanian, and just because he's not a Saint doesn't mean we don't want to talk about him. So And I thought the way he handled himself with the media, I can't believe he was able to stand up there, and it looked like, Jeff, it looked like he was holding back, just breaking down and crying. I mean, you felt bad, genuinely bad for the way this situation's been handled. And basically he's been pointing at as the fall guy, and he's certainly not the fall guy in this situation.
The one thing I didn't understand, why were they having press availability on Tuesday?
I was wondering that as well.
Because if you know how the NFL works, Tuesday's Players' Day off. They don't play a Thursday night game, do they, by some chance? Maybe that could possibly be what it is. But normally the players are off on a Tuesday. There is no media access at all on Tuesday. And Wednesday kind of starts the work week for the players and the media. And today would be the day that practice resumes and you get availability. That's why we always talk to Drew Brees on Wednesday. So it was interesting that he was there. Unless they decided to make this a Tuesday, one-day story, but it's going to carry over. I mean, when they get in the locker room today, the local media in New York, they're going to be asking teammates about the Eli Manning situation.
Well, some teams do the wild practice where they practice Tuesday and they're off Thursday.
Yeah,
that might be the schedule. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's just the only thing that stood out to me. I couldn't believe that Eli Manning was there, because usually Tuesday's Players' Day off.
Well, and then Ben McAdoo spoke and all this. So, yeah, it must have been, I'm not sure.
It was obviously planned.
Right.
And they knew that
by the Giants.
They knew they had to. Yeah, they knew they had to address it. But to have Eli Manning there, I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, and one other point, Lawrence Tynes, I think the former Giants kicker, was mocking a question of Bob McAdoo about if you're not going to play him, why not just release him? And he kind of scoffed at that. And I think in New York, people are actually wondering that same reaction with Mike Francesa, of course, the famous sports talk show host. He went on a tirade about why don't you just release him, and then you'd save money. But why not? Why do this to him? Why not release him and let him go play somewhere else?
Well, they want to get something for him. I mean, that's why. I mean, that doesn't strike me as odd at all.
Well, if you the only next time you can trade him is to start in the new league year, and then you got to pay a big roster bonus to do it.
I mean, they've got
to keep him.
They got to pay $5 million to trade him. But for them, if they get a draft pick for him, and they should get a decent draft pick, there's no way I would just release him.
You and your logic.
Well, I mean, come on, he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. They would get pilloried if they did that, I think. I mean, then you're just basically getting nothing for him. What they should have done is let him play out the year,
right,
and then trade him, and they'd probably get even more for him. Now they don't even have leverage because everybody knows that they got to get rid of him.
Everybody knows it's the end.
Yes, so no one's going to give them market rate for Eli Manning. They've handled this thing so poorly, and it's shocking for the Giants organization. I mean, they're a very well-run organization, at least from ownership side. They are a paragon of ownership, and they never really have these huge fiascos. They pride themselves on that. And to have this handle, I think it's definitely going to cost Jerry Reese's job, and probably Ben McAdoo. I just can't see any of these people surviving this season and this decision.
All right, let's hear from Eli Manning. This is from our sister media organization, NJ.com, and the Newark Star-Ledger. Let's hear what Eli Manning had to say on having the option from the Giants to start and then leave the game.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't think that's, hey, you started knowing you're going to come out of the game, to keep a streak alive, maybe. That's not what it's about, it's not a preseason game. You're going to play start to the half, the next week a quarter, a series. It's not fair. It's not fair to me, not fair to Gino. That's not how you play. You play to win. You're named this, quarterback, starting quarterback. You think it's your job to go win the football game. You know you're just going to play a little bit. I didn't want to, I didn't feel that was the right way to play.
And Jeff, I think that if you do this in week 15, 16, and you want to say, all right, hey, we're going to give the other quarterback some time, but you got 5 more games to play, and what are you going to ride with Geno or Davis Webb the rest of the year, and Eli's just going to kind of sit around and stand there? I mean, every week it's an embarrassment for him, honestly, in my eyes.
The whole thing's a mess. I mean, even Davis Webb, I even have problems a little bit with that. I mean, is he really your guy? I mean, you got all off-season to develop him and to see where he's at. There's so much that Eli Manning has done for that organization that you have to give him that respect. You owe it to him, in my opinion, to let him play out the season and then move on from him. You're not gaining, in 5 games body of work, you're really not gaining enough to know what you've got in Davis Webb or Geno Smith for that matter. I just think the cost-benefit analysis that you would perform on this decision clearly weighs in the favor of keeping Eli Manning on board. I mean, for all the things we've already talked about, and then you move on. You're not going to gain enough in 5 games playing these guys, especially with this banged-up lineup. I mean, what are you going to learn? They've got no receivers that can get open. Their offensive line's in shambles. Well, so what are you going to learn in that environment from your quarterbacks? I just think it was I don't know who made this decision. I'm sure we're going to find out soon because I know everyone like Bob Glauber in New York is going to get to the bottom of it. But someone's head is going to roll because of it.
Maybe multiple. Let's hear what Eli Manning had to say about trying to make any sense of this.
I don't have to make sense of it. This is what it is, and like I said, the idea with it.
Did you see this coming at all?
No, I mean I didn't know what was going to occur. I mean, hey, we're 2-9, kind of uncharted territory, so you don't know what to expect when you're in that situation.
And here's Eli Manning on maybe the quarterback plan going forward.
You know, to go out there knowing you're coming out, that's I just didn't think that's how do you prepare? Hey, you start this week. I was going to play the first half, and Geno was going to start the second half. But where eventually they're going to start working in Davis, and I thought I was just starting and playing to keep a streak alive, and I think that's the right thing.
Now, how is Eli handling this emotionally?
Right, that's I think that's when that's your job. You're a starting quarterback. Your job to go out there and win the football game, and that's not the case. You're just going out there to play, knowing you're not going to finish the game. I just didn't see that being the right thing.
Eli, how hard is this hitting you emotionally?
That's hard. Hard day to handle this, but hang in there and figure it out.
Hardest days of Giants, you say?
It's up there. Yeah.
Do you feel like you might have started your last game for the Giants?
I don't know. I don't know. I'll take it one week at a time.
Last one, guys. Have you spoken to anyone besides Ben about the decision, Jerry or John or anyone like that?
I spoke with Jerry Reese a little bit, and Mr. Mara had he hadn't been in today, and but he knows what's going on, and I'll probably try to speak with him tomorrow sometime.
All right, one more before we go to break here, and we'll get Ron Higgins on, our LSU SEC columnist, and switch gears a little bit. Let's hear what Archie Manning had to say. He spoke at a function up in Jackson, Mississippi last night. This is via WAPT-TV. Let's hear what Archie had to say about the benching of Eli Manning.
Eli is going to be put down. It was probably inevitable, but it's okay. He'll handle it. It was like he told me last night. He said it's going to happen. He said they're going to start me, but they're going to take me out even before they know how the game goes. And he said, because I got a record going for, I played two, I said, what do you think about that? He said, I won't say exactly. It was one word, but half the word was bull. So he kind of got that straight today with them, that he didn't want to tarnish that record by being a token starter. But like he said, I'll handle it, but I don't like it. And I said, that's a good attitude, and I'm proud of him the way to handle it.
Archie putting it just as Archie would.
Yeah, that was, I would expect nothing less from them to have discussed this. They're very close, father and son, and I'm sure they'll go forward, and Eli Manning's going to rebound somewhere. There's no doubt.
There's no doubt. Jacksonville, hello?
Yeah, that will be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So let's switch gears. Coming up next, Ron Higgins, LSU SEC columnist. We'll talk the SEC coaching carousel, LSU's bowl projections, and his thoughts on the college football playoffs. Right now, Alabama on the outside looking in. Auburn number 2, a 2-loss Auburn above a 0-loss Wisconsin. We'll get Ron's thoughts about that as well. So come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder.
Hop up on top and start jiggy jerking. Slow down for me, you moving too fast.
Your forecast on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
This report is brought to you by CC's Coffee House.
Happy Wednesday from the Fox 8 Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. Looks like temperatures will be in the mid-70s for highs, making it a warmer than average day for the end of November. We'll also see a little 20% chance.
All right, this is a short break. We got about a minute and a half.
Overnight, we'll see those temperatures dropping into the 60s on both sides of the lake, and another warm day tomorrow with temperatures getting into the mid to upper 70s. From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. Have a great day.
At CC's Coffee House, they only have one holiday tradition: make it delicious. This season, they're celebrating with peppermint bark and maple chestnut lattes and mocha sippy, plus a few other surprises. Have a minty maple and merry holiday from CC's. You love our coffee, and we love our guests.
For over. All right, we got Ron in 1 minute.
All right, thanks,
Where
bud.
it's always been. It's
Yep.
New Orleans tradition. Mandina's Restaurant. Come in for some New Orleans staples. Old-style New Orleans food. Atmosphere. And some of the best seafood in the city. Always New Orleans. Always the best. Always Mandina's.
This holiday, the best place to find bottle after beautiful bottle of the most fantastic fragrances is Ulta Beauty. Get ready to bring the beauty with classics and the most sought-after scents. Nowhere else can you find Philosophy Amazing Grace Ballet Rose or the Kate Spade New York Truly collection. Ulta Beauty also has the must-have right-away Ariana Grande Moonlight set. Hurry in to discover all the pretty perfumes, perfect for gifting. And a luxury robe is our gift to you, free with any fragrance purchase of $40 or more. Don't wait, they go fast. Ulta Beauty, all things beauty, all in one place.
We got Ron?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Okay.
Teams, your Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back, Dunc and Holder, on a Wobble Wobble Wednesday. I know this song is definitely on the playlist for our own Ron Higgins, LSU SEC columnist. I know he just decides to bounce dance all over the place, all over Baton Rouge. Ron, I know this is your scene, right, my friend?
Actually, it's my wake-up call in the morning. I got to bed that way.
Look, it would bounce me out of bed, too.
All the way to the shower. All the way to the shower. It's bouncing. Yeah.
Exactly. I could just see you walking to the beat of the drum, absolutely. So, hey, Ron, obviously a lot's happened over the last, say, week or so. Let's start off with Tennessee. What do you make of the entire situation, starting with Greg Schiano, and now they're having trouble finding anyone on their top 10 list, much less getting one of their wish list head coaches up in Knoxville?
Well, I wouldn't have wanted Greg Schiano just for the fact he was a train wreck at Tampa Bay and some of the stuff that went on there. I mean, and not even bringing the Sandusky stuff into it, because that's still really cloudy and really murky. And that's what all the Tennessee fans and I guess legislatures and former players, everybody else, based their stuff on. It was convenient. It's whether it's true or not. That's still. I mean, it was under oath, but still kind of murky. I wouldn't have picked Schiano because I still like him as a coach. I mean, nothing to do with the other stuff. Now they're going down to they're like I said, Plan X. It's amazing. Now they're going after Jeff Brom, who's been at Purdue for 1 year, and it's just like, and he has some, and he has a passing game that I'm sure Tennessee likes. But it's amazing, if you're a college head coach now and you have one or two good years, all of a sudden you're the hottest thing in America. I mean, like Tom Herman. I mean, you can ride this wave and get hot and get a huge contract, and you may succeed or you may not succeed, but you're going to cash in big. I mean, I keep thinking of when Florida hired Will Muschamp, he was a hot guy. He cashed in and he got fired, then he eventually got back to South Carolina. I think of Charlie Strong at Texas. He was a hot guy, got fired at Texas, landed at a place where he's coaching better now. the whole Tennessee thing amazes me, and I think it's partly because they got a train wreck AD. It's partly because it's a tough place to coach at because it doesn't have a great in-state high school football recruiting, and it's kind of a couple of things.
And what do you think happens now, Ron, at, say, Mississippi State? What are they going to do after losing Dan Mullen? I mean, that obviously he had such a successful run at Mississippi State and really seemed to be a good fit there. They've got to be a little bit scrambling, I think, to fill his vacancy.
Well, yeah, but I understand it. I believe I think they got somebody. They had somebody lined up last night, or were about to. Joe Moorhead. They're going to hire Joe Moorhead as head coach. That's I guess, a strange fit. He was Penn State's offensive coordinator. That's who the guy they're going to hire. And it's, always, I think the SEC's past the point now where you got to have a good old boy to come who's been to the SEC for a long time or been an assistant coach in the SEC to coach. That's been going a long time. I mean, that's probably, as far as I can remember, it started probably back. Donardo may have been one of the first guys outside the SEC family to come in here, and he was with Vanderbilt, so that didn't count. Probably Saban, Michigan State was probably one of the first coaches really to come in the last 20, 25 years to come to this league that wasn't in the SEC family. He had never coached in the SEC, and came in and did well. And it kind of broke the door down to kind of go outside and get people. And obviously this is from Mississippi State, this is a bold move to get a guy out of State College, Pennsylvania, and then he's never coached in the SEC. But we'll see what happens. They want an offensive guy, and he was supposedly the National Offensive Coordinator of the Year last year. So we'll see what happens.
Ron Higgins, LSU SEC columnist for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. Ron, what do you make of the Dan Mullen hire? We haven't talked to you since they've made that thing official. Obviously, the connections there certainly make sense, but it seemed like they dabbled in Chip Kelly. But what do you make of how Florida has handled now that they don't have a head coaching vacancy?
I think Florida desperately wanted somebody who's going to score points. It's a place that's, for better or for worse, since Spurrier went there in 1990, they've been spoiled. They like to score a lot of points. And they had that with Spurrier, and they had that with Urban Meyer. Didn't have it with Ron Zook. Didn't have it with McElwain, who was supposed to be the guy that could put points up. So they were going to get a guy that can score points. And they went up to Chip Kelly, and obviously when UCLA came along, that wasn't going to work. I mean, I always thought when that happened that Kelly was going to UCLA. He wasn't going to go to Gainesville. And then they looked at Scott Frost at Central Florida, and I think he's got a game this week, conference championship game against Memphis, and then I think he's really like the Nebraska job if he can get it. And so that left you with Dan Mullen, and the thing that worked in Dan Mullen's favor was that since Scott Strickland, the AD at Mississippi State, he didn't hire Dan Mullen, but he was there, became AD when Dan was still coach there. Scott kind of understood the circumstances that you win a game at the state. You don't have the biggest budget in the world, and they're not great in-state recruiting because there's not a lot of qualified athletes academically. So what happens is, Scott Strickland can overlook the fact that Dan Mullen was, a combined 5-22 against Alabama, Auburn, LSU. He can overlook the fact that he was 9-32 against ranked teams, and focus on the fact that he got 8 wins 5 times in 9 years in a place that's difficult to do. And you feel like you project that guy and put him in a place like Florida that has great recruits. The way Dan develops quarterbacks, that's who you end up with, and And Dan Mullen was great at the press conference when he was introduced. I mean, Spurrier was there. He played up to Spurrier, which is good, what you always do. Said he's going to use Spurrier as a sounding board, which is something McElwain never did, which really PO'd a lot of people in the athletic department. And Spurrier just kind of didn't understand why. Just like if you need need a little help, come to me. Let's discuss some stuff, and that whole thing with too hard-headed. So I think Dan Mullen's going to play well. I think he was ready for this head coaching job now, and not 3 years ago when Matt Holwain was hired.
Talking to Ron Higgins, our LSU and SEC columnist at NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune. Ron, what's going to happen with Matt Canada? Is he going to be with LSU next year? What are your expectations?
I think he will be. He's out recruiting. I look at it this way. Look, everybody, when you get a new offensive coordinator, the first year is never like, everybody hold hands and, sing We Are the World. It's never like that. You go back, you look at Lane Kiffin in his first year at Alabama. That's when they got to beat by Ohio State in the playoff game in New Orleans. Lane Kiffin ran an offense that was too hurry up for Nick Saban. They ran too many plays too quick and left their defense on the field and they got tired. And toward the end of the year, they wore down, and it showed up in the Ohio State game in particular. So the second year, Kiffin dialed it back, learned to run tempo stuff when he had to run it, and learned how to dial it back, and they came to an agreement. Nick. Nick still got angry, but that's Nick. But they learned to what each other liked. Same thing happened with Gus Malzahn his first year under Gene Chizik. Ran an offense too fast, left the defense on the field. And Chizik said, "We got to let's dial it back a little the second year." Made the adjustment. They won the national championship. I think the same stuff's going on with Canada. Okay, Ed's got getting used to some of the stuff Canada does. He doesn't like. You know what? And I know Ed said he didn't want to meddle in offense, but as a head coach, he has a right to say, we need not to do this, or let's rethink how we do this. All these LSU fans think because Ed Orgeron said, "I'm not meddling in offense," that takes away his complete right as a head coach to tell his offensive coordinator, who he hired, say, we need to rethink this. Like against A&M, 3rd and 1 at the goal line, running a jet sweep and getting nailed for a 3-yard loss. Let's rethink this now. He has a right to say that. All these LSU fans think like Ed Orgeron's the biggest dumbass in the world because he's going to ask his offensive coordinator. He's going to tell him what to run for a play. Well, he's not going to tell him what to run, but he has a right to suggest something. And all these LSU fans, because of the Les Miles syndrome, because Les meddled with the offense, they think Ed's going to do the same thing. He's not going to do the same thing, but he has a right to say what he likes.
You mean the head coach can actually ask, someone who is his employee to actually ponder doing something? Stunning, Ron. Stunning, I know.
And Ron, I wanted to say, I think that's a good point that you.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a good point that you bring up because a lot's been made of this, supposed rift between them after the game earlier this year. I think that's I think that's being way overstated. I think it's exactly what you say. The head coach goes through these conversations and decisions with his coordinators throughout the course of a season. It's not unusual, and I think it's being overblown that there's some big rift between them because he wanted to dumb down the offensive line motions because he had so many young players being in the offensive line that week. I think that's being overblown because I think it happens a lot more than we all know.
Yeah, and you know what? He tried it for one half. It didn't work.
Right.
And then he took responsibility for it. Nobody. I asked him the question because it didn't make sense to me that game against Troy. In the first half with an experienced quarterback, you have no motion. In the second half, you put the young guy in, put Brennan in. There's all this motion and stuff. And I asked him the question, and he goes, yeah, that was on me. He explained the first half because of all the penalties we've had these first few games. I want to simplify things for our young offensive linemen. So I told Matt, let's not run any motion or shifts. He goes, and obviously it didn't work, so the second half we went back to doing what we were doing. He took responsibility for it.
Right.
He didn't puff anybody else. And, to me, that said a lot. But all these LSU fans, I guess Ed's given an impression like he's just this gatekeeper who just hired a couple of guys and lets them do their job, and like he said he wants to do, and then never says boo to him about anything. Well, his right as a head coach to step in and say, you know what, explain what you're trying to do here because I'm not quite getting it. Maybe we can try to do it this way. And if offensive coordinator doesn't want to do that, then he needs to be somewhere else because you've got to be flexible. Ed's trying his best he screwed up so bad at Ole Miss. He knows what he did, and he tried to micromanage everything. He understands that. He gets it. But he has a right as a head coach to step in and say, let's try to, do this differently. With the offense this year, it's a growing process. Did I think it was a hell of a lot better than last year as far as formation and shifts and all that stuff and deception? Well, yeah. As far as points and yardage and efficiency, no, it wasn't. Was it all on the scheme? Not really. You had problems in the offensive line. That screwed it up. And as Edling said after the last game, he said, he might have all his guys in here. You have to recruit guys to a system. And you come in here, you're trying to fit guys that are on another system, and you fit them in this system, it may not work as well, which is probably what's happened this year. And so they need more offensive linemen. They need more receivers, and they need and Daniel will be the first to tell you, they probably need a quarterback who can probably run more of what Canada wants. So that's kind of they got through this year, and then let's see what happens next year. But I don't think Matt Canada should go anywhere for another year. Let's see how this plays out.
Ron Higgins, LSU SEC columnist, right here on Dunc and Holder. Hey, Ron, appreciate it as always, and I'm sure we'll catch up with you next week once we figure out where LSU's going bowling. So, hey, Ron, appreciate it as always, my friend.
Take care, guys. See you.
All right, that's Ron Higgins. Let's got one more segment before the top of the hour. Don't forget, in about 15 minutes, we will have Bob Glauber from Newsday will come up. So come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
Ivy flows poison like ivy. Oh, they grimy. Already offers on my 6th album for labels trying to sign
request.
You're the man, Dave.
LSU coming back from the dead.
4-6.
And
that was a horrible song.
on the higher.
No more requests from Dave.
Yeah, I'm going to say, who requested that? I'll give him a pass for once, but that was a terrible song.
Let me find it here. JPG.
Searching for the perfect Christmas soundtrack?
JGPJ.
We've got you covered.
I'm a music snob, so.
With our most popular station of the season, iHeart Christmas Radio.
My partner, my co-host, always calls me a jaded music major because that's what I went to college for. I was like, no, I'm not jaded about music. I just know what sounds good and what doesn't.
The soundtrack to all of your holiday
what's a hot mess and what's not.
All your favorite music, all your favorite stations, all free.
I'm Dave Marley, president of Marley Drug. Are you taking Viagra? Now you can get
all right, 30 seconds.
Ingredient in Viagra in generic 20 milligrams for $2 per tablet. That's a savings of $50 per dose. Marley Drug is a North Carolina pharmacy delivering generic sildenafil to your door. For more information on sildenafil, go to marleygenerics.com or call us at 800-853-6375. That's 800-853-6375.
Join the TJ Martell Foundation in the fight against leukemia, cancer, and AIDS. Your support helps facilitate cutting-edge research that will lead to more effective treatments and save more lives. Visit tjmartell.org to learn more.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
I mean, we're very versatile here on Dunc and Holder. Torture Tuesday, Wobble Wobble Wednesday,
Country Fried Friday.
That's Jeff's favorite day of the week.
We're all over it.
That's because we get to run out of here on noon and no more radio till Monday.
We need a light rock day.
We need like a Michael Bolton, like Kenny G day.
Christopher Cross, Ambrosia.
I just threw up. Stop. I just threw up. Don't do that.
Christopher Cross, dude. We could use a little sailing.
Yes. When you get caught between the moon and New York City.
Oh, sweet baby Jesus. I was about to sing and I stopped myself. Jeff does not have that filter. That's why he decided to sing.
And I've got a cold, so it makes it even worse than it would be.
You've had a cold for 3 months now.
I know. It's mind-boggling.
How I haven't gotten sick from you being in close proximity to you like every day is a miracle.
This is the most virulent strain of cold virus in America. I've talked to a number of people. They all have it for at least 2 weeks. It's mind-boggling.
I think maybe because I'm drinking my daily energy drink in my Chuck E. Cheese cup. That's what's keeping me going.
I took a B12 shot.
That's right.
In Los Angeles, trying to knock this thing out. Did nothing.
Didn't happen.
Probably was nothing in it. Probably was sugar
I told
water.
you to take Jaeger, and you would not do that.
I fell for the B12 shot at the juice bar, the trendy juice bar that Josh Katzenstein directed me into, because he's a young millennial and he's into that kind of stuff.
Yes, I'm not.
Didn't
not.
work.
No.
The B12 shot failed.
Did not work. Well, Alabama might need a B12 shot to get into college football playoff. Those rankings came out last night. Clemson 1, Auburn 2. The 10-2 Auburn Tigers are above Oklahoma at 11-1, and Wisconsin at 4 is 12-0. Alabama is 5, Georgia 6, Miami 7, Ohio State 8, Penn State 9, USC 10, and might as well mention TCU at 11 because they play Oklahoma.
Where's LSU?
LSU, I'd like to say, is actually I don't have to like to say. I know where they are now. 17th. So that's respectable.
That's not bad,
No.
considering where they came from early this season.
Right.
And I think what this boils down to now, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like the SEC championship game, somebody's getting in from that, the winner.
Right.
And the ACC championship game, probably the winner gets in.
Right.
And then if Ohio State beats Wisconsin, Alabama's probably going to slide in, don't you think?
Well, I think there's going to
Or TCU beats Oklahoma.
Well, there's going to be the argument that does Ohio State with 2 losses better than Alabama with 1 loss, even though they didn't play in championship
Because they
weekend?
had more big wins? Is that
Well,
what-
Ohio State would if they beat Wisconsin, that would be a much bigger win than Alabama ever had. Because who's the team, the highest ranked team that they
LSU.
beat? It's LSU, right? That's
right,
crazy.
number 17, while Ohio State will have wins against Penn State and
Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's the argument. The other argument of that, the other side of that argument would be Ohio State has a horrible loss to Iowa, and Alabama's lone loss was to number 2 Auburn on the road. So you could see both sides of that argument. But Alabama's schedule wasn't very strong, but they were hurt by Florida State not being Florida State. You know, you really think about that. That was a team that was ranked in the top 5 when they played them, and they weren't the same team once their quarterback got hurt. What I think is interesting is that Clemson and Auburn are 1 and 2, and they've already played each other this year. This would be, if they were to make it to the title game, it'd just be a rematch of a game that was already played earlier this season.
Yeah, I would agree there. But you look at it, and boy, look, 12-1 Wisconsin gets bumped down if they lose. I mean, look, and you had teams that are 2 losses above an undefeated team. And look, I know Auburn's 2 losses. Look, to Clemson and then at LSU, which if they wouldn't have lost at LSU, they'd be number 1 right now. Well, I don't know. Clemson would probably still be above them just because you look at that they have the overall win against them.
Right. Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, Clemson, I think, probably right now is rightfully the best team in the country. That loss at Syracuse, their quarterback got a concussion in the second quarter, and I think the committee has recognized that. And they have the experience of being in this playoff, so I think they've got the upper hand. Auburn's still got to get through Georgia, which I don't think is going to be easy at all. You're playing in Atlanta, a team you just beat a few weeks ago. That's going to be difficult for them.
Yeah, I would agree there. So our number 1 is up. Our number 2 is on the way. When we get back, we will speak with Bob Glauber from Newsday. We will talk more Eli Manning, down to the bottom of what in the world's happening up in New York. Then around 11:30, we will hear from Will Guillory. He will be covering Pelicans. What in the world? This is not Wobble Wobble Wednesday. Jeff gets Christopher Cross sailing.
I'm very, very relaxed right now. I'm in a good mood.
Why don't you go take a nap over there? Go watch Dudley Moore in a movie or something. But, teaser here. Exactly. A little tease here from our buddy Todd Graffinini on your flagship station for all things Tulane's men's basketball. They have a game tonight. Pre-game 7:30. 6:30. Tip 7 o'clock against Alcorn State. So come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Duncan Holder.
My son Aiden has asthma. Secondhand
All right,
smoke
5
has
minutes
triggered his asthma
get
so
this
badly,
column done.
he ended up in the emergency room and spent multiple nights in intensive.
I've forgotten how bad that song was, too.
What are you talking about?
Hey,
It's a great song. That's a good movie.
Don't be shy about
sing
touching.
The Arthur song.
The song you were singing, Dudley Moore.
Yeah,
from Arthur.
exactly. Arthur. That was a good movie. Come on.
Oh, boy.
Come on.
Was that movie in color?
Halloween
Was it a
3
talking
over here.
picture show?
I know, that's no Halloween 3.
Simpsons take a family outing. This is what their car sounds
Wasn't
like.
Dudley Moore in
January,
10 with Bo
February,
Derek?
March, April, May,
Yes.
June, July.
How do I know
fame?
How do I know so many
Come
Dudley
November,
Moore
it
movies?
sounds
I
like
need
this.
to.
Those are the only 2 I know.
Need to jump through that glass out there and just take a flying
I like
leap.
it. This Christmas, the naughty list is not an option. So get them what they want with Cyber Week deals at Toys R Us. Thousands of items on sale all week with new
Yeah, it's got about 6 minutes.
ToysRUs.com for details. Toys R Us. Today we play.
WODT WNOE FM HD2 New Orleans. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app. Search Sports 1280. Fox Sports trending now.
Up and down injury report in the NFL. Atlanta Falcons look to be getting their number 1 back into the starting lineup. Running back Devontae Freeman is out of concussion protocol. Now has been cleared for practice. He missed weeks 11 and 12.
Sweet.
Giants have placed Janoris Jenkins on IR with an injured ankle. He's done for the year. Buccaneers have also placed right tackle DeMar
next
Dawson on
Wednesday.
injured reserve with a knee injury, but they do expect quarterback.
All right, so Bob is right out the gate, right?
Yeah.
13.
Okay.
Put you on over
Next
quickly to
Wednesday,
college
they-
football.
Tulane
Oklahoma State
plays
head coach
Southern
Mike
at
Gundy
noon.
has reportedly turned
So
down an
our
offer
show
from Tennessee
ends
to
at
be their head
11:30.
coach. Mississippi State has found their guy. Penn State offensive coordinator Joe Moorhead as their new head coach. And in the NBA, 76ers Ben Simmons has an ankle injury. He has a game time decision tonight. Sixers take on the Wizards. I'm David Gascon.
Hi, this is Jennifer Coolidge. The American Heart Association says the disco song Stayin' Alive is the near-perfect beat for hands-only CPR. If you see a teen or adult collapse from cardiac arrest, you only need 2 steps to help save a life. Call 911 and push hard and fast in the center of the chest to the beat of the song Stayin' Alive. Disco is back and it's saving lives. To learn more, go to heart.org/hands-only-CPR.
Nationally supported by the WellPoint Foundation. Conditions are supportive of another interest rate increase in December, so says Fed Governor Jerome Powell during his Senate confirmation hearing this week, the hearing to confirm him to take over the chair from Janet Yellen.
Our aim is to sustain a strong jobs market with inflation moving gradually up toward our target. We expect interest rates to rise somewhat further and the size of our balance sheet to gradually shrink.
Referring to the balance sheet of all the bonds the Fed bought to help end the recession, beyond just lowering short-term rates, Powell also says the Fed is working on tailoring financial regulations to the size of the institution.
We want regulation to be the most intense, the most stringent for the very largest, most complex institutions, and we want it to decrease in intensity and stringency as we move down through the regional banks into the community banks. So this is something that we strive to achieve. We're taking a fresh look at that right now.
Nothing against Powell, but Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio says he's disappointed that President Trump didn't name Yellen
Oh man,
for
you saw
another
that
term.
Chair Yellen
making
was,
layoffs
as
today
we know,
at
the
ESPN.
first
Yeah, she
woman
texted
ever
me
to
earlier.
serve as chair
wish
of the
me
Board
luck.
of Governors of the Federal Reserve.
I mean, I think most of it's
This
like
administration
TV
has
stats
also
over there,
broken
like
with the
Sports Center.
tradition of trying to make the federal government more diverse.
Yellen's term as chair ends in February. Apple could soon be offering a foldable smartphone. Fast Company reports Apple has received a patent for a foldable electronic device with a display that can fold in both directions,
And they're
either on
flattening them all
itself
up there, like
or in a
in
way
2
that the
weeks,
display is
everybody
on
in
the
the
front and the
organization's
back.
going to
Apple does hold
Everybody.
patents on products it's never
Years and a
actually
half.
produced, but this past September, Samsung announced plans to release its own version of a foldable smartphone next year. And the annual Motor Trend magazine car of the year is the Alfa Romeo Giulia. It beat out Tesla's more affordable all-electric model, just released this year, the Model 3. The Honda Accord finished third. And Motor Trend is once again naming the Ford F-150 as the truck of the year. And it's honoring General Motors CEO Mary Barra as automotive.
All right, 2 minutes. I'm calling Bob now.
Business News, Joe McConnell, NBC News Radio.
$20 per month unlimited in-car Wi-Fi from AT&T is here just in time for your family's holiday road trip. Get the kids connected in the back seat so they can stream their favorite music, TV shows, music, and more. Also get access to stations and playlists from the iHeartRadio app. Go to att.com/connectedcar to learn more. Turn your car into a powerful Wi-Fi hotspot with in-car Wi-Fi from AT&T. After 22 gigabytes per line per month, you may experience slower speeds. Price per vehicle for AT&T Connected Car Unlimited plan. Eligible vehicle and AT&T wireless account required. Plan does not include Stream Saver. Service and coverage not available everywhere. Other charges, additional usage, and other restrictions apply. iHeartRadio app is separate.
The setting for next year's wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle will be at St. George's Chapel in Windsor, England. The chapel dates back to the 15th century and is located at Windsor Castle, where Harry's grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, lives for part of the year. Kensington Palace confirming that Markle will be baptized and confirmed in the Church of England at some point before the wedding. Markle intends to spend her time learning more about the UK before becoming a citizen. The couple will wed in May. Veteran actress Angela Lansbury setting off a firestorm of controversy for saying
All right, we got Bob.
To blame
Cool.
for being sexually harassed. The Tony Award winner and former Murder, She Wrote star says women's attempts at making themselves attractive have backfired. The 92-year-old tells the Britain's Radio Times that women must sometimes take blame. Others reacting over Twitter said Lansbury's comments show an attitude that does.
Didn't you date Angela Lansbury, Jeff?
The Laundry crew are reuniting.
Pipe down, Peanut Gallery. What's going on in here?
You just enjoy those Murder, She Wrote marathons?
MTV series. It'll.
She's kind of hot in a librarian
What was she in
novelist kind of way.
like a million years ago, like Mary Poppins or
balls,
something?
arrests, and other shenanigans.
She wasn't in Mary Poppins.
Octogenarian kind of way.
Octogenarian kind of big word Wednesday.
The Boss has decided to do another round of Springsteen on Broadway when the current sold-out run ends.
All right, 10 seconds.
Shows will run through June 30th. That's entertainment. Jennifer Pulsoni, NBC News Radio.
Dunc and Holder, hour number 2 on a Wednesday, November 29th. Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan here with you at our NOLA.com Times-Picayune studios. First hour, if you missed any of it, NOLA.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube page, and of course Sports1280.com. Talked a lot about what's going on with Eli Manning. Of course, the news across the sports world. He's being benched. Geno Smith. Yes, that Geno Smith is becoming the starting quarterback, at least this week, for the Giants. And let's head up to New York. Catch up with Bob Glauber, NFL columnist for Newsday. Bob, I think when the news came out, I'm pretty sure it was a stunner down here. I'm assuming it was a stunner up in New York. Just how have you put your head around this whole thing, maybe about 18 hours removed from when we first heard the news?
I have not. I am still, like, I actually woke up in the middle of the night thinking about this. Now, that's not unusual to have insomnia as a reporter, but, I mean, I just can't, I can't get this one. I don't get how they did it. Obviously, I'm not alone. I mean, I can't believe the outpouring of support for Eli Manning among former Giants players who have either played with him or have gotten to know him, or even just random, Ed McCaffrey never played with Eli Manning, but he weighed in. It's kind of taken on a life of its own. It is a stunner, and it was a stunner when the news came over in an email at 3:27 p.m. The subject line, Geno Smith to start on Sunday. I'm like, oh, my God. What is going on? So this has been handled extremely poorly. Look, no one's going to say that Eli Manning has been playing his best football, but he's playing with essentially a practice squad caliber offense right now. And nobody would look good throwing to the likes of the receivers that Eli Manning has and playing behind an offensive line that has gotten him, really kind of mangled in some games. That's not been terrible, for a lot of it after a terrible start to the season, but his protection has been brutal. The running game has been spotty at best, and it's not a fair fight. I feel very badly for him. Classiest athlete I have ever covered, and that covers a lot of ground, a lot of years. And Eli Manning, there had to be a better way.
Yeah, Bob, the thing that strikes me, and Larry and I talked about it earlier on the program, the Giants have always kind of been a model franchise in the NFL. Their ownership is among the best in the league. It's long been among the best in the league, going back to the Maras and the Tishes, of course. And that just shocks me that the organization would kind of make such a clueless decision. They seem to have almost lost their way in the last year or two. I don't know if that's Jerry Reese. The hiring of Bill McAdoo, of course, was somewhat controversial. Do you think Reese and McAdoo survive this, or they have the support of ownership right now?
Well, they do have the support of ownership right now. I think the accent should be on right now. I think that, and I think it probably will change. I just don't see how, we're going to see 3 more home games where the fans it's going to be like a quasi-insurrection. It's going to be weird. I mean, they play Dallas in 2 weeks. They're on the road in Oakland, and I can't imagine them beating the Raiders. As many problems as the Raiders have. And then they play home at Dallas in a game that was flexed out of a 4:25 p.m. Eastern start. Like, when do you see that? I mean, Giants-Cowboys is a ratings bonanza for Fox, and they're taking it out of the better afternoon spot. That's how far both of these franchises have fallen right now. And so I'd be surprised if McAdoo and Reese do survive it. But the one wild card here is, what is John Mara thinking? And, he calls the football shots for this organization. Steve Tisch is the co-owner and has equal say in everything. But John is the guy who shows up every day. We haven't gotten him. I hope to speak to him at some point today just to see where he is in this whole thing. And it's really a head-scratcher. Look, 2-9, obviously a lot has gone wrong. But do you take it out on the face of the franchise for the last 14 seasons? A guy's put 2 Super Bowl trophies in your case, and a guy who has been nothing but professional, polished, and done everything that one could ever want from a football player. I don't know. And my contention is that, they want to get a look at Geno Smith and Davis Webb, the 3rd round pick out of Cal. There are ways to do that. You don't have to just bench Eli Manning or present him with the idea that, okay, we're going to start you to keep this streak alive of 210 straight starts, second only to Brett Favre, but we want to look at these guys in the second half. I'm like, come on, man. Come on. I'm not a coach. I'm like, there are ways to get a quarterback in a game. And, our fans are paying good money to see you put a product out on the field that is winning. They're treating the last 5 games like it's the exhibition season. It's I'm at a loss, Jeff. This is a weird one.
Bob Glauber from Newsday, NFL columnist, join us right here on Dunc and Holder. I'm glad we were able to be Bob's therapy session. We're just letting. It's like you're on the couch and you're laying down, and you're talking it out with us because look, I think we're all on the same page, and I just feel like if you could ride this thing out, let him play out the season. You know that they're scouting Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold and all these other quarterbacks out there. But to me, as far as the perception in New York, you are going to bench Eli Manning for the laughing stock of New York quarterbacks that is Geno Smith. I think that might be the worst part of it all.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And as I cover the Jets as well, so I've seen a lot of Geno Smith. Now, he's shown some promise at times, but he's also shown the penchant for throwing horrific interceptions at other times, a lot of other times. I'm pretty sure his touchdowns to interceptions is about even, or maybe a little bit fewer touchdowns. I don't have the stats in front of me, but this is Geno Smith. This is a guy Jet fans could wait to see leave the building. And I honestly think though that this is a move to get Davis Webb ready and not so quickly. So in other words, if Davis Webb ends up starting next week against Dallas at home, that means that they were just using Geno as a bridge guy to get through the Raiders game. But even then, like, what are you doing? You got one of the great quarterbacks ever, best quarterback in franchise history, to show a rookie the way. And even if you don't want to say it right away, you can prepare him like that. The public fallout here is just, it's mind-boggling, and that's why maybe that's why I do need that therapy session, because for my entire career that I've covered the Giants, they have been nothing but class. Now, I came after the dark, they call it the dark ages of late 60s and through the mid-70s. I came after that when it was getting good. You know, Phil Simms was playing well. LT was there. Bill Parcells was there. So, you know, I got a chance to see the good stuff. But it's really fallen, you know, pretty hard right now. And this goes back to, you know, there was a year in '78 where the Giants bottomed out. They had this infamous play called the fumble, where Joe Pisarcik hands off to Larry Zonka. The ball is fumbled, you know, with seconds left to go, and Herman Edwards scoops it up and wins a game for the Eagles in the final seconds. I mean, the offensive coordinator was fired the next day. John McVay was not retained. Andy Robustelli resigned as general manager. It was a train wreck. And then George Young comes in, you know, kind of a la Jim Finks, fixes the Giants, brings stability to the front office, and they have this remarkable run of stability that leads to 4 Super Bowl championships, which is what I think it might be as many as any team in the league during that time. So now it's just all falling apart and quickly.
Globs, how's this going to end? I mean, do you think Eli's played his last game up there?
I do, Jeff. I can't see how they're going to mend this fence. I mean, I think that they've basically said, and we have to see what John Mara, I think he's agreed with this, you know, from what Ben McAdoo said. He ran it past ownership. He ran it past Jerry Reese. So if ownership agrees with this move, you can't help but think that Eli Manning has played his last game with the Giants. And, you know, he's got a no-trade clause. I can't imagine he would be not willing to waive it given the right situation. And, oh, by the way, there's another iconic figure in Giants history that was shown the door a bit unceremoniously, and that was Tom Coughlin a couple of years ago. He's down in Jacksonville. Kind of needs a quarterback. He's built a really good team, great defense and great running game, and I don't know, could use a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, wouldn't you think?
And
I am going to connect those dots, and you know, I think they're going to. I wouldn't be surprised at all if those two guys end up together again, and you know, good if they do.
And Bob, Tom Coughlin spoke out in defense of Eli Manning, very open and honestly. So I'd be with you as well. Bob Glauber from Newsday, NFL columnist. Check out his column on Eli Manning right now on Newsday. Incompetent Ben McAdoo did Eli Manning wrong. That you did that headline and that column absolutely correct. So Bob, appreciate the therapy session, and good luck in a crazy off season.
Larry, I appreciate the therapy session. You guys have helped me get my day off on the right track here.
There you go.
Thanks, Globs.
Appreciate the time, Bob.
All right, see you, Dunc. Be good.
All right, see you. That's Bob Glauber from Newsday. And you could just tell in his voice, just everyone's mystified up there.
Yeah, you know, rarely in this 24/7 news cycle, as heavily covered as the NFL is, rarely does something come across that shocks people the way this did. You know, the New York media is wired in on the Giants, and for it to shock them, longtime established guys like Bob Glauber, speaks to just how out of left field and how crazy this decision was.
Absolutely. So, we'll switch gears. Let's talk a little Saints when we get back. Sean Payton spoke to the media earlier today. We'll give some of his thoughts, specifically on Coby Fleener. Remember, he left the game with a concussion, but there's some questions on after he took the big shot. Then the next play, they threw at him again, and he couldn't make the catch. So Sean Payton addresses that concussion protocol situation. So we'll touch on that. And then in about 15 minutes, we will talk with our own Will Guillory, Pelicans beat writer for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Pelicans taking on the T-Wolves tonight. So lots to still talk about here on a Wednesday here. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Duncan Holder.
Clay Travis.
I'm a First Amendment absolutist.
Mornings 5 to 8.
I open up phone lines and let people just tee off on me and say I'm racist. Why do I do that? Because one, I know I'm not racist. And two, I think that allowing more voices to talk is always better than less.
Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Reigning national champion Clemson, the new #1 in this week's college football playoff rankings. Then it's Auburn at 2, Oklahoma at 3, Wisconsin at 4. On the outside looking in, Alabama, Crimson Tide, then Georgia at number 6. The final rankings come out Sunday. Major backlash out of New York as the Giants announced they're benching two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback Eli Manning Sunday against the Raiders in Oakland. Head coach Ben McAdoo revealed yesterday Geno Smith will get the start. An emotional Manning spoke to reporters.
I'll back him up. I'll be a good teammate. You know, I don't like it, but for football, you handle it, and do my job.
The move ends a streak of 210 consecutive regular season starts for Manning's second in NFL history. In college football, it didn't take long for Mississippi State to find a replacement for Dan Mullen. Reports say Penn State offensive coordinator Joe Moorhead will be the next head coach for the Bulldogs. Mullen is
1 minute
in the conference and taking over at Florida. That's sports. Jay Corwin, NBC News Radio.
This week on Big Easy Deals, get a family 4-pack to the Audubon Butterfly Garden and Insectarium for just $34. Watch as the beautiful butterflies swoop and soar all around you. Go to foxsportsam1280.com, keyword deals for your half-off certificate today.
Allison is perfect. I mean, she'd never tell you that. She's humble and perfect. She likes everyone. She even likes her untidy roommate's weird guinea pig. Allison, wait, are you texting and driving? Allison, no. That's the exact opposite of what I was just saying about you. Why, Allison? Why? Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Sean Payton spoke with the media this morning, as he does each and every Wednesday leading up to a game. And just kind of a tidbit here. Looks like Bryce Harris is back, you know.
Shocking.
Death taxes, Bryce Harris. He's back, according to a source, our own Herbie Teope reporting that, which means Teron Armstead might not be ready to go. I think we've seen the way the writing on the wall usually happens with some of these situations. I know yesterday the Saints waived Dexter McDougal, and it was like Saints fans were clinging on. This means Marshawn Lattimore's coming back. Oh, it's going to be great. Let's chill for a second, because Dexter McDougal wasn't exactly playing. So I don't know if that means that at all, to be honest with you.
Right, he wasn't on the field. I think what'll be interesting is what we talked about on the program yesterday. How do Dennis Allen and Sean Payton handle the secondary, assuming Lattimore doesn't come back? Do they still stick with the 3 safety look? They might be able to get away with that this week against Carolina. They're not nearly as proficient offensively, especially at the receiving position, as the Rams were. But I don't know if they can survive going forward with Kenny Vaccaro playing the slot nickelback position. And I think there could be some tinkering there within the course of the next few weeks until Lattimore gets back, assuming he's out another week or two.
Yeah, and could one of their cornerbacks come back this week? Possibly. I wouldn't suspect it's Marshawn Lattimore. I would be more on board that it could be Ken Crawley. But who knows? Look, they're going to practice today. We'll get the first injury report out later on today, and I'm curious to see what happens. But this morning, Sean Payton was asked about Coby Fleener and his concussion, and we all saw the big shot, and it rightfully deserved a penalty, I assume. Who was it that made the big hit? We have it right here on our.
The safety for the Rams?
Yes, it was Blake Countess, looks like. That's who
I would have never guessed that.
Exactly. Took the shot and got flagged, and obviously right then and there you would assume you might want to test him for a concussion because he got drilled. But he was in on the next play, and they threw the ball to him, and he dropped it, and you're wondering what's going on. And then later he was diagnosed with a concussion. But I'll just read you what our Josh Katzenstein had to write about it, saying that Coby Fleener suffered a concussion on Sunday's loss to the Los Angeles Rams, and even though he continued to play after the hit, that seemed to cause the brain injury. Coach Sean Payton defended how the team's medical staff handled the issue, saying, quote, the process took place in a good way. And Sean Payton later said there were no signs or symptoms immediately following the hit. 3 plays later is when Fleener dropped the pass, and Payton saying it wasn't until a play or two later, I want to say early in the next series, where he was having more of a vision issue, and as soon as Dan Campbell, his position coach, realized it, we held him back and went ahead and had the testing. Payton adding, he's doing good. We'll see where he's at this week. Now, I don't want to go crazy about this topic just because he didn't play the whole game. Sometimes concussion symptoms don't come up in a split second. They did catch it 2 plays later, 3 plays later. So I'm not going to go nuts about it.
It's not Sean Payton's fault. They've taken that decision out of the head coach's hands. It's the spotter on the sideline, the specialist in the press box as well. It's their job to recognize, hey, this was a helmet-to-helmet hit. Let's get him out of the game. And that takes that decision out of the coach's hands, rightfully so. They need to be coaching the game. They're not medical specialists, but that's what those doctors have been put into place. Those neurologists have been put there to make that call. And obviously it took too long to make the call because I think as soon as you see that helmet-to-helmet hit, you get him out of the game. And that's their call, not Sean Payton's call.
Right. And I guess, look, when he started showing symptoms and the coach saw it, then they yanked him. And I would agree with you. I wouldn't put the blame on Payton. They're the ones who actually caught it, as opposed to the doctor saying, no, go get him right now.
Right.
I think that's – I don't want to put blame on Sean Payton or Dan Campbell. I'm going to take the blame off of them and say those guys, they're there for one reason. One reason is to catch that stuff.
And there's always, in their defense, there's always a gray area there. I mean, some of these hits look more violent than they are, and some of them are more violent than they appear. You can never tell sometimes from watching video how hard a hit is. Sometimes there's glancing blows. Sometimes the hardest, I've talked to players before, some of the hits that look the hardest, actually, they don't feel them nearly as much. It's almost like a golf shot. When you really hit it on the sweet spot, it's a perfect hit and you don't feel it. And then sometimes the guy gets hit just glancing blow to the side, and it's just in the right spot, and they get knocked out. So, it's a very difficult thing. It's not a perfect solution or a perfect science, if you will, by trying to watch a game and make a call. So I just think these things are going to happen. I'm not willing to question it. They got him out of the game eventually a few plays later.
Yeah, I don't want to put major blame on anybody. Like I said, they got him out a few plays later. It wasn't like he played the whole rest of the game as walking around wobbly and getting drilled for another 2 quarters. It just wasn't happening.
But it is our job to ask those questions and to get a response from the team and from Sean Payton to explain it to people why he was in the game after receiving a concussion. That's part of our job.
Absolutely. And just from the Panthers side of things, of course, our good buddy Joe Person, who covers the Panthers for the Charlotte Observer, just to kind of give you a heads up on what's going on in their practice. Joe reporting that it looks like Christian McCaffrey is getting a day off. Darryl Worley and Devin Funchess are not practicing. Ryan Khalil and Greg Olsen were both practicing. Cam Newton wearing gloves on both hands today, at least walking in. So I think there were some questions maybe with Cam Newton. And then you have Julius Peppers with a veteran day off. Thomas Davis heading in early to get treatment on his leg. Shaq Thompson was also not practicing. So obviously they got some key injuries. The Greg Olsen one is the one where you're wondering how he responds. He didn't play much against the Panthers dealing with that foot injury. And Cam Newton didn't look his sharpest. Maybe he's banged up. I don't know. So I'm curious to see kind of their injury report after today's practice.
Yeah, he's the go-to guy for Cam Newton. That's a big loss if he's not in the lineup. Cam Newton has either been spectacularly good in some of the wins this year at Detroit, at New England in particular, or just horrifically bad. I mean, there's no in-between with Cam Newton. He's either off the charts great or just pedestrian and mistake-prone. And so it depends on what Cam Newton shows up against the Saints this Sunday. But I really think the Saints are going to bring their A game. I just don't know if they've got enough healthy bodies and enough talent right now in the field to win.
And I'm wondering with Marcus Williams, how is he going to be? I'm curious because he left that game early, and so, oh boy. And now the first video from Diana Rossini. This is a first. Eli Manning, the backup, and she's got video of him being the backup quarterback.
Wow, I wonder when the last time Eli Manning was a backup.
I could tell you when. Well, probably at Ole Miss.
Was Kurt Warner starting for a little while his rookie year?
Yes.
They brought in Kurt Warner, so maybe it was then.
Yes, I was going to go all the way back to when he was at Newman. He was like in 9th grade. But I think he might have been a backup for like a smidgen for Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, maybe?
Yeah, but he was a backup for a little while to Kurt Warner, and then came in later on his rookie year.
He'll be starting somewhere else next year, and I think it's going to be interesting to see. That'll be a big, big topic in the offseason.
No doubt about it. So why don't we take a break right here on the show, switch gears. Pelicans going to be taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Should be quite an interesting matchup tonight between two teams. If the playoffs started today, in 15, 16 games in, both of them would be in the playoffs. So, well, 20 games in. But look, we will talk with Will Guillory. He'll be covering the game tonight. So come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder. Eli Manning might end up in Denver.
I know. I thought about that too.
Forecast on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
This report is brought to you by Lung Cancer Foundation of America.
Happy Wednesday from the Fox 8 Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. Looks like temperatures will be in the mid-70s highs, making it a warmer than average day for the end of November.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where else. Maybe Arizona, maybe?
20% chance for a stray shower or two. But overnight, we'll see those temperatures dropping into the 60s on both sides of the lake. And another warm day tomorrow with temperatures getting into the mid to upper 70s. From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. Have a great day.
Lung cancer kills more people than breast, colon, and prostate cancers combined. If you or someone you know has lung cancer, the Lung Cancer Foundation can
Jeff's
help.
dying again.
Lungs
I know, it's got like a catch in my throat.
Help fund the research needed.
That break was at a good time.
LungCancerFoundation.org for more.
Hurry up, dude. That A1's getting printed like in 20 minutes.
I know. Number one in this week's college football playoff rankings. Then it's Auburn at 2, Oklahoma at 3, Wisconsin at 4. On the outside looking in, Alabama, Crimson Tide, and Georgia at number 6.
On Friday?
Final rankings come out
because I didn't
Sunday.
run it till Saturday
out of
morning.
New York as the Giants announced benching two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback Eli Manning Sunday against the Raiders in Oakland.
Head coach Ben McAdoo, I don't even know the answer.
He
told me to get updated all the way to through Friday.
Spoke to reporters.
I'll back him up. I'll be a good teammate. You know, I don't like it, but for football, you handle it.
because I wrote it, ended up
do my
finishing
job.
it Friday.
A streak of 210 consecutive regular season starts for Manning's second in NFL history. In college football, it didn't take long for Mississippi State to find a replacement.
I don't know what the deal is.
Mullen. Reports say Penn State
offensive
coordinator Joe Moorhead will be the next head coach for the Bulldogs. Mullen is staying in the conference.
I thought they were running
and
the Sunday
taking over at
centerpiece on the
Florida.
front, and they ran it the Wednesday
NBC News
front
Radio.
page. I got it on Tuesday. Wednesday front page. They didn't even tell me.
$20 per
I'm
month
busting my
unlimited
butt to
in-car
get into
Wi-Fi
Wednesday
from
paper.
AT&T is here just in time for your family's holiday road trip.
And then they spelled Gail Benson's name wrong.
Back seat so they can stream their favorite music, TV shows, music, and more. Also get access to stations and playlists from the iHeartRadio app. Go to att.com/connectedcar to learn more. Turn your car into a powerful Wi-Fi hotspot with in-car Wi-Fi from AT&T.
10 seconds.
We got Will.
AT&T Connected Car Unlimited Plan. Eligible vehicle and AT&T wireless account.
Who?
Free service and coverage not available everywhere.
Wobble, wobble.
Additional usage and other restrictions apply. iHeartRadio app is separate.
I guess that's a yes.
Talk to me now. Cruising down the street. Real slow with the.
Yeah, we got him.
Talk to me
Tricky,
now.
tricky.
Cruising down the street. Real slow with the fellas be yelling.
Where you yelling at?
Welcome back, Dunc and Holder.
We were letting that set in a little bit on the crowd.
We had to get Will wobbling, dude. Our Wobble Wobble Wednesday regular. Will Guillory of NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, of course, covers the Pelicans. Pretty significant matchup tonight, I would say, taking on the Timberwolves at Smoothie King Center. A 7 o'clock tip. Of course, you can listen to that on our sister station here 99.5 FM WRNO. And Will, been a while since we talked with you, and it seems like the Pelicans are starting to move along the right track. I know they lost at Golden State. That was to be expected, but 3 wins prior to that. We're 20 games in. How do you evaluate this team 20 games into the season so far?
Well, I think they have to be happy about where they are right now, sitting, in the playoff race above 500. Obviously, getting Rondo back is a huge part of that, and I mean, just the optimism about the future, and the way they've played since he's been back has been, I mean, really not surprising, but it's kind of it's everything they would hope to see from that lineup, especially that starting unit with AD, DeMarcus, Rondo, and Drew playing together. Those guys really look good together, and I think they have to be happy about the way things are going now. You would hope that maybe you can get some of these guys healthy, kind of fill out the bench and bring this thing to the next level. But, as of right now, they have to be happy about where they sit. And for once, they aren't a team, falling victim to the injury bug. It's kind of everybody else in the West dealing with injuries. So now they're just kind of figuring this thing out and trying to work their way up the standings.
Yeah, Will, the next 5-game stretch I think is going to be really compelling. They got the T-Wolves at home tonight. Then they go on for a quick road trip against Utah and Portland. Then back home against against Golden State and Denver. So you got all Western Conference rivals, all teams for the most part, except for maybe Golden State, that are in that same boat of like contending for a playoff berth in the 5 to 8 seed range. So we really should get a great read on this team over the next week or so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think these are the type of games that the Pelicans should feel like they have a great chance to win, and especially the home games, they feel like they should win if you want to really be taken seriously as a playoff contender in the West. I think, just like I said, getting Rondo back is a huge part. It's just the overall confidence of the team, just playing smarter overall. I think he's been big in that aspect. And I think starting tonight, I think obviously they lost to Minnesota early this year, so getting a win against Minnesota would be big tonight. But going forward, I think that road trip, Utah-Portland, I think is going to be really big to kind of see how this team handles going on the road, playing another back-to-back against 2 teams that's looking for wins against them and need them in that Western Conference playoff race. So, like you said, I think these next few games are going to be huge for this team, just to kind of, feel their way out and see where they are in this playoff race. And I think, as of right now, I think they have a great shot, and I think the injuries and everything else are kind of playing out in their favor. It looks like they have a really great shot. But doing well in these next few games will certainly, kind of make everything real concrete about where they are right now.
Will Guillory covers the Pelicans for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. Pelicans taking on the Timberwolves tonight at home. And you wrote a story about how the new Pelicans 3-guard lineup is going to be tested against Minnesota. And look, we saw what happened when they played Minnesota the last time. Pelicans lost. Minnesota certainly played better than that, and they didn't even have a real good outing from Karl Anthony Towns at all in that game, and they still were able to take care of the Pelicans. It kind of explain what's going on with the 3-guard lineup and how it's going to be a challenge tonight.
Right, and getting Rondo back, it was big just to get the best out of, Drew Holiday, AD, and DeMarcus, the big guys on the team. But part of that as well is you kind of lose that shooting, so they had to kind of find more shooting to put around those guys. And Dante Cunningham was the guy originally starting at the 3, through the first part of the season, but he's really struggled shooting the 3-pointer. So Alvin Gentry has decided to move him to the bench and move E'Twaun Moore into the starting lineup at the 3 spot, and he's around 6'4", 6'5", really typically a 2-guard. And so you're playing Rondo, Holiday, E'Twaun Moore. Those are 3 guys around the same size, usually can guard pretty much any guard, but when you're going against the Andrew Wiggins and the Jimmy Butlers of the world, you usually would want a Dante Cunningham-sized guy to kind of deal with them. So it's going to be really interesting to see how E'Twaun Moore and Drew Holiday kind of take on that challenge of guarding bigger guys, because that's something they're going to have to do going forward if the Pelicans are going to stick with this 3-guard lineup. And I think just the overall success of the group, regardless of opponent, I think this is the right group to have on the court, these 5 guys, just because E'Twaun's playing really well, and I think he balances out, everything they need from Rondo and Drew. So I think this is the way they're going to have to play, but it's going to be tough when you play against some of these bigger wings, especially like Jimmy Butler, who's so good in the post, and he's so good at not only getting shots, but creating shots for everybody else down there on the block. and it's going to be a test for each one to see if he can kind of contain him and stay out of foul trouble and still be effective on the other end.
Yeah, and I tell you, the one guy that continues to shine for the Pels is Darius Miller. We've talked about him on the show before, Will, but he's been something of a revelation. He's shooting at a very high rate from three-point range and really seems to have benefited from going overseas and kind of honing his game. He's a different player, much different player than he was first time around with the Pelicans.
Yeah, I think if you ask anybody on the team, the first word that always comes out is confidence. I think the confidence he has now compared to what the first time he was with the Pelicans, I think, is night and day. He just has a much greater belief in his game, not only his shot, just because a big thing that he's doing this year as well is kind of catching, pump faking, and dribbling, to the paint and kind of keeping the ball moving, where a lot of times with guys where they're just shooters, if their shot isn't open, then they kind of just panic or they might catch the ball and kind of sit there, where he's out there kind of making plays. He's knocking down open shots. He's not hesitating when the ball comes in his hands. And that's helped the Pelicans bench a lot, because early in the year, they were getting pretty much nothing from the bench. And now they got Darius Miller, a really reliable shooter, coming off the bench. And, when they're playing DeMarcus Anthony as the center with those bench units, having that extra spacing on the court has been really huge. And if he can continue to shoot this way, I think it'll be really big for this team, just because we talked about it all year, the lack of shooting they have on the roster. Just having that one reliable guy to knock down open shots kind of opens up things for everybody else.
Will, I'm going to steal Jeff's questions here. When is Boogie going to quit turning the ball over? That's Jeff's favorite topic. That's Jeff's favorite topic, and I just stole it right under him.
All I know is he leads the league in turnovers by a wide margin, 5.3. No one else is really even close. I mean, even Russell Westbrook, who has the ball in his hands all the time. But it seems to me, Will, correct me if I'm wrong, that now that Rondo's in the lineup, he's going to be the main ball handler for the most part, and that's kind of alleviated some of those I think responsibilities for Cousins.
DJ NOLA East has a question for Will.
Those responsibilities have gone down, but the turnovers haven't, which is kind of confusing, and I think something he needs to work on. But I think, just like you said, I think he has to do a better job taking care of the ball, just not making those dumb mistakes. I think, as of right now, it sounds weird, but I think he's kind of having the biggest trouble kind of adjusting to Rondo getting back. And I know that sounds strange, considering he was the only guy on the roster that played with Rondo, in the past few years. So you would think him and Rondo would be a natural fit, but I think he got so used to playing that point boogie role that we always talked about early in the year, where he had the ball in his hands so much. Now he has to figure out how to kind of get his offense from Rondo or from these other guys and kind of not have the ball as much. So I think he's kind of having a tendency at the time to kind of force things when the ball is in his hands. And I think if he just gets a little bit more patient, makes smarter passes, not kind of do those kind of silly things with the ball, I think that'll help this offense a lot. Just because Anthony Davis is obviously playing at such a high level. He just got Western Conference Player of the Week. So if DeMarcus can kind of regain that form he had early in the season, I mean, this team could be really scary.
Will Guillory, NOLA.com, Times-Picayune, Pelicans beat writer, joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. We've got a caller question, and if it was anybody else, I might not take it, but DJ, always from NOLA East, always brings such poignant points. We're going to let him jump in the show. Hey, DJ, thanks for calling. What you got for Will?
Hey, Larry and Jeff. Yeah, well, I wanted to find out, you were talking about them having a 3-guard package now. But what is the update on Solomon Hill? Because I know the guy, is a good defensive player. You were talking about, having to deal with all of these, threes on these other teams. Is a possibility that he can be available, maybe at the break, and would he be available to be able to play the rest of the season? And I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah. We actually got to talk to the guys today about Solomon. We talked to Drew Holiday at Shoot-Around today. He says he's been in contact with Solomon. Obviously, they're two LA guys, so they're very close, and they've been talking to him, making sure he still feels a part of the team. But I think as of right now, I think they're probably shooting for maybe post All-Star break, maybe a little bit before that, for a Solomon return. I think dealing with that torn hamstring, the biggest issue is kind of the fear of re-injuring it. With hamstrings, you never know. So I think they would like to get him back on the court at some point this season, but I would guess they're probably shooting maybe right after the All-Star break, just so he can kind of get some time back with the team, maybe get a few practice days in. Now, what his role is going to be once he gets back, I'm not sure. I think I don't know this for sure, but I think you would have to have him on some type of minutes restriction just to bring him along slowly and kind of make sure he gets his basketball legs back underneath him. So I would think he can play some type of role on this team, but I don't know how much, considering he's going to be coming back so late in the season. That's why I think it's so important for them to figure out this three-guard lineup and make it work so they can at least be in the playoff hunt by the time he comes back.
Hey, DJ, appreciate the phone call. Will, one more from me. What are the keys tonight for the Pelicans to get by the Timberwolves? They're going to be challenging them kind of through the standings. What's going to be the keys tonight for the Pelicans to rebound from that Warriors loss and pick up a significant win here in the Smoothie King Center?
Well, I think first off, Minnesota's coming off a tough. They're on a back-to-back tonight after coming off a tough loss last night to the Washington Wizards. So I think anytime you're playing on a team on the second night of a back-to-back when you're on the road, you kind of got to have to force them to run up and down the court, try to kind of see if you can wear them down as the game goes along. So I think that's something to pay attention to, especially in that third quarter, to see how Minnesota's looking, if they really, got the energy to keep up with this Pelicans team that has a top 10 pace in the league, especially with Rondo in the lineup. So if you see the Pelicans running up and down the court, making those guys keep up with them, I think that can go to the Pelicans' advantage. And also, just like we've been saying, just containing Jimmy Butler and Andrew Wiggins. Those are two of the best wings in this league, and they love getting down on the block. They love posting up against smaller guys. So they're going to try to do that a whole lot tonight, and the Pelicans are going to have to just tough it out and contain those guys as much as possible. And if they can do that, then that'll allow this team to get out and run. And I think it'll be a tough matchup on the other end for those guys to defend Drew and Etuan with the way Rondo is handling the ball.
Will Guillory, NOLA.com, Times-Picayune, covers the Pelicans. He will be there, Smoothie King Center tonight. Pelicans taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves against 7 o'clock tip. And you can listen to all the action on our sister station, 99.5 WRNO-FM. Hey, Will, appreciate the time as always, my friend.
Yes, sir. This is my favorite day. I love me some Wobble Wobble Wednesdays, so I'm very happy to talk to y'all.
And you're wobbling right out the door. Listen to this wobble. That's what I'm talking about.
Thanks, Will. Always the best, bud.
Will's all on top of it. Yep.
Appreciate you guys.
You got it, Will. All right, let's go to one more segment here on a Wednesday edition, locked and loaded Wednesday edition of the show. So we'll probably screw it up in the final segment. So come back and hear the train wreck here. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
Defense is playing much better. I just think that, looking at Dave Aranda, I don't know if it's scheme anymore. He just doesn't have the horses.
Mornings 8 to 10.
He's got a lot of inexperienced guys and guys that maybe aren't living up to expectations that we had for them coming into the season.
On Sports 1280, New Orleans.
For game-changing innovation, look to the Latrim family of companies located in Harahan. Intralox, a Latrim company, changed the game when they invented modular plastic conveyor belts over 40 years ago. These belts and innovative Intralox technology are transforming movement in manufacturing facilities around the world. Intralox is a dynamic global company now hiring in production, warehousing, shipping, and more. If you want to be part of our successful team, visit Latrim.com. That's LAITRAM.com.
This holiday, the best place to find bottle after beautiful bottle of the most fantastic fragrances is Ulta Beauty. Get ready to bring the beauty with classics and the most sought-after scents. Nowhere else can you find Philosophy Amazing Grace Ballet Rose or the Kate Spade New York Truly collection. Ulta Beauty also has the must-have right-away Ariana Grande Moonlight set. Hurry in to discover all the pretty perfumes, perfect for gifting. And a luxury robe is our gift to you, free with any fragrance purchase of $40 or more. Wait, they go fast.
For what?
Ulta Beauty. All things beauty, all in one place.
I'm Ron Sanford, president of Metairie Bank, and this year's keynote speaker.
I thought Vince McMahon was
fundraiser on
he's like
30th.
The head of he's like the guy, like the announcer.
For tickets, visit eachonesavone.org.
Sensory sensitivity,
Jim Ross.
lack of eye contact.
I knew you'd be like, who?
Exactly.
Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs.
I'm sending this thing.
Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
15 seconds.
Okay. Violence. He sat down.
This thing
Mahatma Gandhi reached out with the strength he cultivated within his soul. So, pass it on from the Foundation for a Better Life at values.com.
Dunc and Holder now. Josh Innes next at noon on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
You missed any of the show? Had Bob Glauber on from Newsday. Ron Higgins, our LSU SEC columnist for here at NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, and just chatted with Will Guillory, of course, our colleague who covers the Pelicans. You miss any of this? Sports1280.com, NOLA.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube page. And Jeff, Randall Lew from the NFL, of course we know him from the NFL PR staff, had quite an impressive statistic he popped out on Twitter during the show. I figured I'd share it with our listeners, that Alvin Kamara has 546 rushing yards and 548 receiving yards in just 11 games. Only 2 rookies in NFL history have ever recorded 600-plus rushing yards and 600-plus receiving yards over a full season. That's Charlie Taylor in 1964 and Billy Sims in 1980. Alvin Kamara pretty good. Last I checked, he seems like he's pretty good, huh?
Yeah, I tell you.
Saints might want to keep him.
He's been, if you really look at the last 5 to 6 games, his numbers have really increased. His production is off the charts. I mean, he's scoring 1 or 2 touchdowns in almost every game. And that's rare for a rookie to pile up that kind of rushing and receiving yards. And what he did against the Rams was, I think, eye-opening. He did it on a national stage. It was a big platform for him. You know, it was a national game on CBS, right? And the L.A. Times NFL reporter, a columnist, Sam Farmer, I had dinner with him after the game, and he was raving over Kamara. He goes, I'd heard about him. I knew how good he was, but until he saw him in person, he just couldn't believe how he turns those 5-yard gains into 20, 25-yard gains, mostly on his own, bouncing off tackles, eluding defenders. He's got a rare skill set, and he's faster than people think. You know, he runs with that stride. It doesn't look like he's moving that fast, but nobody's catching him. And so I think the Saints have a rare talent in Alvin Kamara, and it's really going to be interesting to see how they continue to use him going forward, because I think teams are trying to start to game plan for him more and more, and the Saints are finding different ways to get him the ball.
You look at the stat that Pro Football Focus popped out there as well earlier in the week about Alvin Kamara. I think, was it over the last 4 weeks? I think he had like 31 elusive I think people missed him 31 times, and the next closest person was Todd Gurley at 16.
Right.
So it just goes to show you how slippery and elusive he can be. And all you got to do is look at the cover of our sports section today, and I think it was more because there's no story about Alvin Kamara in the paper, but it's just more to display how awesome the photo we got from our own Michael DeMacher and give it some love, and just to show how ridiculous Alvin Kamara can be. And he can slip a tackle, he can leap a tackle. Right now the headline is New Back City, and he is definitely in this town. He's that guy, and I don't think he's going to be going anywhere for quite a while.
I think that photo, there's always that cliche, a photo speaks 1,000 words or whatever. That is a perfect example of it. You don't need to have a story there. You just need to see that photo and see what remarkable athleticism he has. These are the best tacklers and best athletes in the world he's going against, and they can't bring him down. He's hurdling guys. And it's funny, I went down to Hahnville High School yesterday working on a column about their great running back at the high school level, Anthony Puka Williams, and his head coach, Nick Saltavamaggio, compares him to Alvin Kamara. And as I watched the tape last night, some of the highlights of Puka Williams, who's, by the way, has run for over 300 yards in 3 straight playoff games, remarkable at that level. I mean, the highest level in the state. He's very similar to that. He's very fast, but he doesn't look like he's moving that fast. And I think it's an apt comparison right now. I'm really looking forward to writing this story on him, because I think somebody's going to get a big-time player out of Hahnville.
Yeah, I would agree. And they are, in the state semifinals?
Yeah, Acadiana.
So they're playing basically one of the Class 5A powerhouses.
Right. And, a lot of the comparisons, I talked to Puka Williams yesterday about who he compares himself to, and he brought up the usual suspects. He brought up Kamara. He brought up Tavon Austin, who's a similar kind of player, and Deshaun Jackson. And I could see him being that kind of player, but he's probably going to play slot receiver at the next level. He's got to get his grades in order. There's some question on whether he'll be qualified. But if he does get qualified, I mean, all the big boys are coming in now, Larry. Oklahoma, Alabama, LSU. This is a kid committed to Kansas. I'll be surprised if he ends up at Kansas.
I'd be stunned if he ended up at Kansas.
I do too. But in his, credit to him, he's formed a bond with Tony Hall, the assistant coach at Kansas, and he wants to honor at least and respect the fact that they believed in him all along, and he's not getting blinded by the bright lights of these big programs. I think he is genuinely, seriously considering going to Kansas, but in the end, it's going to be hard to turn down some of these big programs if he gets qualified.
Right, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about this later on in the week as far as recruiting because of all the crazy coaching carousel chaos. Well, I'm sure we're going to effort our own recruiting expert, Jimmy Smith, on the show just to kind of get some perspective on what's going on out there because they've got that early signing period that's coming up that's different than what it's been in every other season. And I think there's a reason why there's a rush to fire coaches because you better get a coach in line to get on board with this recruiting process.
And, recruiting is difficult. I would not want to be in the shoes of some of these kids. I know it's a good decision or a good, tough decision to have. But going to the big program is not always the best thing. We saw it happen with Lindsey Scott. Here's a guy that was committed to Syracuse. I look at that Syracuse offense and think, wow, Lindsey Scott would be great in that offense. Or he looked at Tulane. He could have been a hero at Tulane and maybe been the difference in them making a bowl as opposed to falling short this year. Instead, LSU comes in at the 11th hour. He goes there, gets recruited over, and then basically wastes a year or so, and now he's at a junior college in Mississippi and kind of restarting his career. He'd have been better served to have gone somewhere else as opposed to LSU, and I think that's a tough decision for a lot of kids right now. Do I take the brass ring at the big program, or do I go someplace that might be a little bit better fit and I can play earlier and be more productive? And I think we see it happen all the time in recruiting because there's 25 scholarships a year. They can take a chance on a guy and over-recruit or over-sign at a certain position, and then there's almost like a training camp fallout from there, and players transfer out.
And I think that in the recruiting process, look, if you're going to play college football, you've got likely aspirations that you would like to play in the NFL someday. And all you've got to do every year is look at the draft and look at guys from small schools jumping out, or not even like the elite schools, but mid-range schools being drafted highly. If you're a good football player in college, you're going to get found. I mean, Carson Wentz is the best example I could ever give.
That's a great point, yeah.
You will be found. Scouts, look, the Saints go and scout David Onyemata and I don't forget where he was in Canada.
Akeem Hicks.
But people knew about him early. But David Onyemata was off the grid, and teams were scouring after him. The Green Bay Packers and the Saints were kind of the two most hot and heavy. But if you're a good player, they're going to find you.
Very, very rarely is the 5-star player the guy that makes it in the NFL. I mean, it happens every once in a while. But for the most part, it's not the superstar guy. It's the guy that blossomed late and kept developing. Sheldon Rankins was a high school running back, and they moved him around and found a spot for him, and he develops into a defensive lineman. Players like that, it's not always the case. Patrick Peterson was a huge star recruit. And
so was Fournette.
And developed, yeah. But more often than not, you've got the Carson Wentzes of the world, the Drew Breeses, whose only scholarship offers were Brown and Purdue.
0-star. And Ronald Powell, who was like the Leonard Fournette, Jadeveon Clowney. I remember writing a column about him when he was with the Saints. He hasn't really panned out, so you never know. Look, if you're good, they're going to find you. So I want to thank Bob Glauber from Newsday, Will Guillory and Ron Higgins from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Great shows. Look, we'll be back, of course, tomorrow, action-packed. We'll be heading, at least I know I will be, heading to the Saints locker room to catch up with the team as they prepare for the Panthers. So come on back for Thursday's show here, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder.
All right, guys.
All right, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Appreciate it, bud.
When was the last time you walked out of a mattress store feeling confident about your purchase?